This is an older piece of story, but it's still worth talking about, and that is specifically because Nintendo, for whatever reason, despite being the absolutely massive corporation that it is, well, I suppose that's for the very reason why it wouldn't do it, basically Nintendo isn't going to let a charity speedrunning event use its games without its permission. So, basically, this is a Japanese-specific speedrunning event, similar to Summer Games Done Quick or Autumn Games Done Quick. So this is Japan's largest speedrunning event, and if we know anything about what Japanese gamers can do, is be absolutely insane at incredibly difficult or tough games, and be able to speedrun and break them in ways that I feel like people can only be so envious of. But basically, RTA is set to kick off this week on the 9th of August, and we'll see some speediest gamers in the biz plowing through the likes of Cuphead, Nier, and Skyrim, all in the aid of Doctors Without Borders. So basically, this is kind of like the Japanese arm of, stuff like, Awesome and Summer Games Done Quick. So that's interesting. We learned a few months ago that Nintendo games will not be included in the lineup now that RTA Group has explained why that is. So basically, in a post shared on the RTA website as translated by Automaton, the event organizers explained that they were contacted by Nintendo back in June, informing that as a legal entity that they would have to ask permission in advance if they wanted to feature any Nintendo game in the event. What's more, Nintendo apparently stated that all previous instances of Nintendo games being streamed from the event are now considered unauthorized use. So basically, the fact that Nintendo said, hey, it was okay to play our games before, and now we're saying, oh, when you did it back then, that was not okay. That's just bad. Like, no matter how you look at it, that could not possibly be seen in any positive metric in any way, shape, or form. You've got to be absolutely insane to agree with that final statement saying previous instances of Nintendo games being streamed from the event are now considered unauthorized use. You absolutely have to be mentally retarded to agree with that last statement, at least if nothing else. That being said, RTA has long featured Nintendo games in its lineup, like Super Mario 64, which is a staple, of course, and Nintendo's interest this year stems from the charity's relatively recent transition into an official legal entity. The event remains a non-profit, with all proceeds going to charity. And to be clear, this isn't necessarily the end of Nintendo RTA appearances, but the organizers state that they are working with Nintendo to get permission for future games. But the proximity to the summer event means that, of course, they are not going to be able to feature Nintendo games in this year's speedrunning event. And so they basically say that while it's disappointing to hear that RTA speedrunners won't be able to get a pop at Mario & Co. this year, not a surprise. Not to forget that Nintendo has been very cagey about events in the past. And keeping in mind that because Sony owns Evo, the fact that Smash is not going to be existing, the fact that the Smash World Tour had a lot of drama going on with a company called Panda, like there's a lot of stuff going on in the background regarding Nintendo community events, and how, like, stuff like the Slippy mod, for example, that's being used with Melee and just unauthorized use there. I feel like if you do anything community driven, it's just not going to work for Nintendo, and it just doesn't make any sense why Nintendo just acts the way that it does, while every other game under the sun can work in a similar metric manner or way. Microsoft will probably not go after you if you play Xbox games in the similar way. It's clear that, Sony isn't going to go after you. Like, again, when it comes to something like Evo, for example, Sony specifically owns Evo, and Nintendo moved away from it just because a competitor owned the very event that the games were being featured in. But I digress. All of that to say that Nintendo sucks. Easily. I complain a lot about Nintendo and talk about a lot of their practices in the past, and I do think that they are, by all accounts, while a company that makes really good games, but when it comes to the community, they suck absolute ass. They are absolute ass. So let's have a look at the comments real quick just to see what the community sentiment is on NintendoLife.com. So, S. Bandy says that really is quite pathetic. Broken Civ says Nintendo always got to be the asshole of the group, and of course, without a shadow of a doubt. Frag Red says, holy, that's bad of Nintendo, and it doesn't make their public image look good, especially when you think of how they like to portray themselves. Elite Patriot had a couple of comments here saying, why do you need permission? Seems stupid. Kind of sounds like hearsay, aka they're puffing out their chest. Can they really legally have such a say? And probably in Japan they might. Grail UK says, is asking for permission frowned upon these days? Did I miss a meeting? Iron Core, Nintendo don't, what Nintendo? God damn, son. AG Awesome, if Nintendo outright said no, I'd be a lot more bothered, but they just said they have to get permission. I don't think that's too much in today's heavy litigious and irresponsible society where wherever a charity act can be turned into something else. Fair, but optics aren't great either way. Hee-ho Master, what does he say? Oh man. I see the clickbait YouTube videos. Nintendo hates fans. Big news. Nintendo wants children to die. All of them are crying Mario thumbnails. I'm not creative enough to do that, to be completely honest. I'm probably just going to say Nintendo hates charity. Let's go with that. That's a good name. Nintendo hates charity. Yeah, free advertising. Twitch doesn't bother them with... In fact, you know what? I don't think a lot of Nintendo games get streamed on Twitch, unless I'm completely missing something here. But yeah, I mean, well, I'm pretty sure there are people who are like, yay, Nintendo are doing what they're supposed to, but either way, I think we can all agree that from an outsider's perspective, it doesn't look great from outside when you're looking at it being like, public image doesn't look particularly great. And it just kind of makes the company look bad. But does a company think about how it looks? Probably not, for the most part. Also, oh, that's cool. Actually, there's also a slight short news, but I'm probably not going to make a video about it. Pac-Man World 2 repack is looking pretty good because they're remaking Pac-Man World 2, just like they did with Pac-Man World 1. So I guess I'm just very happy about that as well. But I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about all this in the comments below. While they have a legal reason to keep people from playing the games at public events, do you think that they should? Do you think... And also, I guess the other question is, how does Nintendo fare public image-wise compared to Sony and Microsoft? I feel like they all have pretty bad skeletons in the closet, but somehow Sony looks like the best, despite the fact that they all are pretty rubbish. At the end of the day, who the hell knows? But with all of that being said, however, like I said, let me know with everything in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. And with all that being said, Nintendo hates charity, and that's what I'm going to call this video. I'll see you guys in the next video tomorrow.